I've always considered myself a rational man, perhaps too rational. Olivia had often told me so, placing her graceful hand on my shoulder. Lawrence, honey, not everything in this world has to be calculated. But it was that rationality that enabled me to build a successful career as an architect, provide for our family, and amass a decent fortune by the time I was 67. Now, sitting in my office in the house I designed 30 years ago, I looked through old photographs. Here's Olivia holding newborn Ethan. There's the three of us on the beach in Ocean City. Ethan must be about 10 years old, smiling with his mouth showing the absence of his two front teeth. And here's a picture from his graduation at the university. Me and Olivia standing on either side of him. So proud. Pictures lie. They capture moments of happiness, but they omit everything that happened between them. About how Ethan became estranged from us as a teenager. How I worked around the clock on projects, missing important moments in my son's life. About how Olivia tried to be a bridge between us, but not always successfully. 3 years ago, Olivia left. Pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis sounded like a verdict, and 6 months later, she was gone. My rational mind refused to accept this loss. I remember that rainy October day standing with Ethan at her grave, and I still couldn't believe I would never hear her laugh again. After the funeral, Ethan stayed for a couple days. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, twirling a cup of cold coffee in his hands, and said some proper words of comfort that slipped past my consciousness. His wife Brooke fussed around, preparing food I couldn't eat and asking questions I didn't want to answer. "Dad," Ethan said then, "maybe you shouldn't live alone in a house this big." I looked at him like he was a stranger. My son, with whom we'd always had a complicated relationship, was suddenly caring. At the time, I wrote it off as his genuine concern. Maybe his mother's death had changed something in him, made him think about the value of family. "I'm fine," I answered then. "This house is my whole life." Ethan nodded, but there was something in his gaze that I couldn't recognize. Now, 3 years later, I realized what it was. After Olivia died, I withdrew into myself. I stopped talking to friends and colleagues, and I gave up my membership in the architectural club where I'd been a member for over 20 years. The only person I kept in touch with was my old friend and lawyer, Harvey Prescott. He came by once a month and we played chess and discussed my financial affairs. "Lawrence, you've got to get out of the house," and he told me. "Olivia wouldn't want you to live like this." But I wasn't ready. A world without Olivia seemed meaningless to me, as dim as a blueprint without color. Ethan and Brooke called regularly, visiting every 2 weeks. Their attention warmed my soul, though our conversations were often strained. Ethan had inherited my restraint, but not my practicality. He worked at an advertising agency, constantly chasing creative ideas and living beyond his means. Brooke was a beautician, owning a small salon in downtown Bangor. They never asked me for money directly, but I often heard stories from them about financial hardship. About a year ago, I noticed a change. Ethan started asking about my accounts, investments, real estate. The questions would come out of the blue, as if by accident. "Have you thought about moving money out of this fund? They say their shares are falling." Or, "Dad, do you remember where you keep the documents on the house?" I answered evasively, seeing no reason to fill my son in on the details of my finances. This seemed to irritate him. He became impatient, sometimes even rude. One day after a particularly tense conversation, when Ethan insisted that I give him power of attorney, just in case, I overheard him saying to Brooke in the garden, thinking I couldn't hear, "He's getting more and more stubborn. If this keeps up, we're going to have to act differently." Brooke replied something in a quiet voice, and Ethan continued. "Did you see how he forgot where he left his glasses? That's the third time today. What if he starts forgetting to turn off the gas or take his meds?" Their conversation got me thinking. Yes, I was absent-minded sometimes, but no more than usual. Olivia had always made fun of my habit of putting things in the wrong place and then looking for them all over the house. It wasn't a sign of senile dementia, just part of my personality. But after that conversation, I began to notice strange things. My glasses, which I always left on my bedside table, would end up in the most unexpected places. In the bathroom, on the kitchen table, even in the mailbox. Car keys disappeared and were in the pockets of my coat, which I hadn't worn for weeks. Papers in my office would turn up mixed up. At first I thought I was really getting forgetful, but then a situation happened that made me doubt it. I remembered exactly putting my wallet in my desk drawer, but when I went to get it, it wasn't there. I searched the whole house, but I couldn't find it. That evening, Ethan accidentally found the wallet in the freezer among the bags of frozen vegetables. "Dad," he said with concern in his voice, "you put the wallet in the freezer? That's not normal." "I didn't do that," I objected. "Of course you did," Brooke interjected. "Who else would have? We just got here. But I knew they'd arrived earlier while I was out walking. They had keys to the house. I'd given them to Ethan myself after Olivia died." From that day on, these incidents became more frequent. I'd forgotten to turn off the iron, even though I hadn't ironed in years. Left the faucets on. One day, Brooke found my blood pressure pills in the sugar bowl and made a scene. "Lawrence," she said then, addressing me by my first name instead of Daddy as usual, "it's dangerous. You could put pills in your tea instead of sugar." I looked at her carefully, at her perfectly lined eyes, at the trendy haircut with melting she'd recently had done at her salon. She was a beautiful woman, 5 years younger than Ethan. They'd met in college, and I remembered how excited Olivia had been about their relationship. "She balances him out," my wife used to say. But now I could see the cold calculation in Brooke's eyes that she tried to mask with ostentatious concern. That night after they left, I called Harvey. "I think my son and his wife are up to something," I told him. Harvey was silent for a moment, then replied, "Lawrence, you've always been perceptive. If you have such suspicions, perhaps they are not unfounded. What exactly is going on?" I told him about the strange incidents, the things that were out of place, the conversations I had overheard. "It sounds like gaslighting," Harvey said. "They're trying to make you and those around you believe you're losing your mind." "But why?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your condition, Lawrence. If they can prove you're incapacitated, they'll have control of your finances. And considering that you never told Ethan about all your assets." He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Ethan knew about my house, a few bank accounts, but he didn't know about the real estate investments, the tech stocks I'd bought in the 90s that were now worth a fortune. Didn't know about the collection of rare architectural books valued at six figures. Harvey was the only one who knew the full picture of my finances. "What should I do?" I asked. "Observe and gather evidence," Harvey advised. "I can install hidden cameras in your house if you agree." The idea seemed excessive to me, and I declined. But I took Harvey's other advice and started keeping a diary, writing down all the strange occurrences with dates and details. This helped me not only to gather information, but also to keep my mind clear. I knew I wasn't going crazy, and these entries were proof of that. Around the same time, Ethan and Brooke started bringing random guests to the house. Neighbors, former colleagues, distant acquaintances. They came ostensibly to visit me, but in fact, as I realized later, Ethan and Brooke wanted these people to witness my abnormal behavior. "Dad forgot he had breakfast again and made himself another breakfast," Ethan told the guests with a concerned look. "This is happening more and more often." I tried to object, but the more I denied it, the more unconvincing it sounded. "Classic case of denial," they whispered. Gradually, my social circle narrowed to Ethan, Brooke, and Harvey. Other friends and acquaintances began to avoid me, apparently believing the rumors about my condition. Even my longtime neighbor, Arthur Pembroke, with whom we used to play chess in the park every Sunday, stopped stopping by. When I met him at the supermarket and asked him why he wasn't coming in, he mumbled something about being busy and quickly left. I felt increasingly isolated, cornered. Ethan and Brooke showed up at my house almost every day, ostensibly to keep an eye on me. They went through my things, checked my mail, answered the phone instead of me. One night, when they thought I was asleep, I heard them talking in the kitchen. "We need to move faster," Brooke said. Dr. Nielsen said that based on our observations, he could conclude that dementia was in the early stages, but that medical tests were needed for a more serious diagnosis. "I'm working on it," Ethan replied. "I made an appointment for him to see a neurologist next week. Said it was just a routine checkup. And if he refuses to go, then we'll use Plan B. I already talked to the Pine Grove administration. They can take him on as a temporary resident if we have the Nielsen report." Pine Grove, the name sounded familiar. I remembered the advertising brochure I'd seen on the coffee table recently. Glossy photos of neat rooms, smiling seniors playing board games in the bright living room. A nursing home presented as a comfort living center for the elderly. What about the trip? Brooke asked. We can't leave him alone for 2 weeks. That's exactly why Pine Grove is needed, Ethan replied. Sure, we'll say it's temporary until we find a caregiver, and we'll leave. When we come back, we'll say that they liked his progress so much that they recommend staying longer. What if he figures it out? He won't. Did you see how he couldn't remember the mailman's name today? He's been on that route for 15 years. I couldn't remember the mailman's name, but not because I had dementia. It was just that our regular mailman, Frank, was on vacation, and he was being replaced by a young guy I was seeing for the first time. But Ethan presented this to Brooke as further proof of my forgetfulness. As I lay in bed listening to my own son plan to get rid of me, I felt not so much anger as deep disappointment. Where had I gone wrong in my parenting? What had I done wrong? Olivia had always been gentler with Ethan, forgiving him for many of the transgressions I deemed unacceptable. Maybe I should have been stricter. Or on the contrary, should I have shown more emotion, not hidden my love behind harshness? In the morning, I called Harvey and told him about the conversation I had overheard. They want to put me in a nursing home and take my property, I said. Don't panic, Harvey replied. We have the advantage that they don't know you know what they're up to. Use it. How? Let them think their plan is working. Go to the neurologist, but I'll send my man with you. He'll look like a regular escort, but he's actually a private detective. He'll record everything that happens at the appointment. If the doctor really is in cahoots with Ethan, we'll have proof. Harvey's plan seemed risky, but I had no other options. I agreed. The next day, Ethan did indeed inform me of the appointment with the neurologist. It's just a routine checkup, Dad, he said with fake concern in his voice. At your age, it's important to keep up with your health. Of course it is, I replied, feigning naivete. You're right, son. He looked at me in surprise, clearly expecting resistance. But I smiled and added, I appreciate your concern. I really do. Something like guilt flashed in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He patted me on the shoulder and left the room, already dialing someone's number on his cell phone. Brooke must have called to break the news that the old man was giving up. But I wasn't giving up. I was preparing for a war in which my main weapon would be information and patience. I had always been a patient man, a quality that had helped me in the profession of architecture, where it could take years from the laying of a foundation to the completion of a building. Now I needed to build a new plan, not for a building, but for a defense. And the foundation of that plan had to be the truth about my mental state. The visit to the neurologist didn't go as Ethan and Brooke had hoped. Dr. Ramsey, an older man with a piercing gaze and a neat gray beard, turned out to be a principled specialist. After a series of tests, he looked puzzled at the results and said, Mr. Whitmore, your cognitive functions are perfectly normal. For someone your age, the results are exceptional. I felt Ethan, who was sitting next to me, tense up. Thonon? But doctor, he objected, we're noticing strange behavior. He forgets important things, puts objects in inappropriate places. Dr. Ramsey looked at my son carefully. Slight absent-mindedness is not a sign of dementia, Mr. Whitmore, Jr. Your father scored well on memory and reasoning tests. I see no cause for concern. Back home, Ethan was irritable and withdrawn. I heard him talking to Brooke on the phone. That old fool Ramsey doesn't understand anything. We need another specialist. Over the next few weeks, the tension in our house only grew. Ethan and Brooke showed up even more often, sometimes separately, as if they were putting me under 24-hour surveillance. I noticed how they exchanged glances when they thought I couldn't see, how they whispered in the kitchen or garden, falling abruptly silent when I entered the room. One morning I couldn't find my reading glasses. I was sure I had left them on the bedside table, as I had done every evening for the past 20 years. But they weren't there. Ethan, I called, coming down to the kitchen where my son and his wife were having breakfast. Have you seen my glasses? Did you lose them again? Brooke sighed with exaggerated concern. Maybe you put them in the fridge like last time. I never put my glasses in the refrigerator, I countered. Of course you did, Ethan interjected. Remember, a month ago, we found them in the vegetable drawer. I remembered that incident, but I was absolutely sure that I hadn't put the glasses in the refrigerator. Just like I hadn't put my wallet in the freezer, or scattered my pills all over the house, or confused the days of the week, as they kept claiming. I'll look for it, Ethan said with deliberate concern and walked out of the kitchen. He returned a few minutes later, holding my glasses. They were in your shoe, Dad, he said with a strange smile. In the left one. I silently took the glasses, but I was seething inside. I remembered exactly that I hadn't put them there. I hadn't touched my shoes at all since yesterday when I got back from my walk. After breakfast, when Ethan and Brooke had gone out into the garden, ostensibly to assess whether the bushes needed trimming, I had followed them discreetly and hidden behind a curtain at the open living room window overlooking the garden. It's been almost a month and we're still at the same point, Brooke said. "Joe, we need to be more decisive." "I know," Ethan replied. "But that Ramsey guy ruined everything. Now my father is even more confident in his abilities." "And what about Nielsen? You said he promised to help." "Nielsen can only give a statement based on our testimony, and that's not enough to force him into Pine Grove. We need the father to agree." "And how are you going to do that?" "Chiuim. I think," Ethan lowered his voice and I strained to hear, "we need to step up the pressure. Not just hide his stuff, but, manipulate his perception of reality." "What do you mean?" "Like changing the numbers on the clock, or saying it's Wednesday when it's really Tuesday, or, mixing up his meds." "Ethan!" Brooke sounded terrified, surprised. "That could be dangerous." "Not mixing it up in a way that would hurt," he explained hastily. "Just swap the morning and evening ones. Or give him vitamins instead of blood pressure pills. It's no big deal, but he'll worry that he mixed it up." I barely restrained myself from jumping out of my hiding place and telling them what I thought. But instead, I continued to listen. "What about the trip?" Brooke asked. "Sure, we had already booked a cruise for next month. If we don't get him to Pine Grove before then we'll have to cancel," Ethan replied grimly. "Or postpone it." "No way," Brooke said indignantly. "I've already bought 3 new swimsuits and the whole cruise closet, and all my clients know that the salon will be closed for 2 weeks." "Then help me," Ethan sounded annoyed. "I can't do everything alone." "When was the last time you were alone with him for more than an hour? You're always making excuses." "I'm in business, Ethan. I can't abandon my clients." "You think I can quit my job? I have to lie to Trevor about family problems so I can get off early and come here. It's not going to be long before he finds someone else to replace me." Their argument continued, but I'd heard enough already. I quietly backed away from the window and went back to my room. I needed to think about the situation. I now had confirmation of my suspicions. They really were trying to make me look insane, and they weren't going to stop. The next step would be to manipulate the medication, a dangerous game that could end badly for my health. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed Harvey's number. He answered after the second beep. "Lawrence, is something wrong?" "I need to meet you," I said. "Not at my house, somewhere where we won't be seen." "That sounds serious." Harvey sounded worried. "I can pick you up in an hour. I'll tell them I'm taking you for a routine checkup." Okay, okay, I'll be waiting." I disconnected and started preparing for the meeting. I had to gather all the evidence I had. Diary entries, a few photos of strangely displaced things I'd managed to take on my phone. Exactly an hour later, the doorbell rang. I was about to go out, but Ethan beat me to it and opened the door. "Harvey!" he exclaimed with feigned joy. "What a surprise." "Hello, Ethan," Harvey replied coldly. "I'm here for your father. He has a medical examination today." "A physical?" Ethan frowned. "He didn't say anything." "I forgot," I intervened, coming to the door with my coat in my hands. "I'm sorry, son. Old memory fails me." Ethan gave me a suspicious look, but didn't object. "I can drive him if you want," he offered Harvey. "It's okay," he replied. "I'm on my way, and after the tour we plan to have lunch in the city to talk about old times." "Oh," Ethan sounded disappointed. "Then, okay. Dad, don't forget your pills. And your cell phone." "Sure." I patted the pocket where my cell phone was. Once in Harvey's car, I felt the tension release a little. We drove away from the house, and only then was I able to relax completely. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To my country house," Harvey answered. "No one will bother us there." "What's going on, Lawrence? You look exhausted." They're overstepping their bounds, I said, and told him about the conversation I had overheard. They're going to manipulate my medication, Harvey. Can you imagine what it's come to? Harvey whistled. It's not just gaslighting anymore, Lawrence. This could qualify as attempted bodily harm. We need proof. I'm writing it all down in a diary, I said, and I took some pictures. But that's not enough, I realize. We need video footage, Harvey said firmly, and I know how to arrange it. Harvey's country house turned out to be a cozy log cottage on the shore of a lake, half an hour's drive from Bangor. We settled into the living room overlooking the water, and Harvey got a bottle of whiskey from the bar. We could both use some, he said, pouring us each a glass. I took a sip and felt a pleasant warmth spread through my body. It had been a long time since I'd let myself relax. So, Harvey began, here's what I propose. We'll install hidden cameras in your house, not in all the rooms, just the ones where the most frequent incidents. The kitchen, the living room, my office, I listed. And the bathroom, maybe. They like to move my stuff to the most inappropriate places. Okay, Harvey nodded. I've got a specialist I know. He can install the cameras without anyone noticing. But I'll need to distract Ethan and Brooke so they won't be home at the same time. It's hard, I sighed. They hardly ever leave me alone. Then we need another plan, Harvey thought. Maybe we could take them out. A dinner at a restaurant, for example. I doubt they'd agree. Brooke always finds excuses not to spend time with me. And Ethan. Ethan won't leave me alone in the house. He's too afraid I'll find their evidence or contact you. Harvey tapped his fingers on the table. What if we arrange it so they have to leave? Some kind of emergency? Like what? I don't know. Harvey shrugged his shoulders. Something to do with their work? Maybe Brooke's salon would have some kind of accident? A burst pipe or something? That could work, I nodded. Brooke is very codependent about her business. If she thinks the salon's in danger, she'll rush over there. And Ethan will go with her because he doesn't trust her to handle crises alone. He'd always thought she was too emotional. Great, Harvey smiled. I'll arrange a call from the salon. We'll say there's a problem with the wiring and there's a risk of fire. What if they call there themselves to check it out? My man will be there to confirm the information, Harvey assured me. Don't worry, Lawrence. I have connections that can help. We spent another hour discussing the details of the plan. Then Harvey drove me back, not to my home, but to the clinic of a doctor he knew, so that our legend of the physical examination would look plausible. Dr. Phelps is a friend of mine, Harvey explained. Marom, he'll examine you and give you an opinion of your excellent mental health. We'll need that if this goes to trial. A trial? I was shocked. You think it'll go that far? I hope not, Harvey gave me a serious look. But it's best to be prepared for anything. If Ethan and Brooke really try to manipulate your medication, it's a felony. The examination with Dr. Phelps went quickly. The gray-haired but energetic doctor asked me a few questions, ran the standard memory and cognitive tests, and at the end said with a smile, Mr. Whitmore, you're in better shape than many of my patients who are 20 years younger than you. I see absolutely no evidence of dementia or any other cognitive impairment. He wrote me a report, which Harvey immediately stashed in his briefcase. This document could be our trump card, he said as we left the clinic. Keep a copy of it, but not at home, but somewhere safe. Maybe in a safe deposit box? I have a safe deposit box at the bank, I nodded, where I already keep important documents and part of my rare book collection. Good, Harvey patted me on the shoulder. Now, we need to put the plan into action. I'll contact you when it's ready. In the meantime, be careful with the meds. Maybe you should keep them to yourself instead of leaving them out in the open. I've already started taking measures, I replied. I hide the real pills in my shirt pockets in the closet, and in the medicine cabinet I leave the vitamins sprinkled into the vials from medicines. If Ethan tries to switch them, I'll take the harmless vitamins instead of something dangerous. That's smart, Harvey said, but still be careful. If you feel anything wrong, call me right away. When Harvey brought me home, Ethan met us at the door. His face was worried, but his eyes were cold and calculating. How did the checkup go, Dad? He asked. Charanui. It was fine, I answered, trying to look tired and a little confused. The doctor said I was in good shape for my age. What doctor? Ethan looked at Harvey. Who did you go to? Dr. Phelps, Harvey answered calmly. He's a good specialist. I've known him for years. I've never heard of him. Ethan frowned. Dad, we agreed that you would only go to our doctors. The ones we know. I'm sorry, son. I lowered my eyes guiltily. I forgot. It's okay. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder, but his fingers clenched a little tighter than necessary. Next time, just tell me, and I'll drive you. Harvey noticed the movement and frowned slightly. Ethan, he said, your father is a grown man. He has the right to choose his own doctors and go wherever he wants. Of course, Ethan smiled strainedly. I'm just worried about him. You know, lately he's been forgetful. I hadn't noticed, Harvey replied dryly. At lunch, we were discussing architectural projects from 30 years ago, and your father remembered every detail. Ethan gave me a quick look of surprise and something else. Fear, maybe? But he quickly pulled himself together. That's great, he said. Dad always had a good long-term memory. It's more the short-term that's the problem. He might remember what happened 30 years ago, but forget what he had for breakfast. Anyway, I interjected, sensing that the tension between Harvey and Ethan was building. I'm tired and I'd like to rest. Sure, Dad. Ethan immediately began to fuss around me. Let me help you upstairs. Did you take your pills? So, yes, I lied, knowing it would be unwise to take anything out of his hands right now. Then I'll go, Harvey said. Lawrence, I'll call you the other day. He shook my hand, and I felt him slip something into my sleeve. A small object, about the size of a button. Goodbye, Harvey, I smiled at him. Thank you for today. When Harvey left, Ethan helped me up to the bedroom, even though I didn't need it. He fussed around, fluffing pillows, pulling pajamas out of the closet, all with an exaggerated care that seems so fake now. Get some rest, Dad, he said at last. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. When he came out, I closed the door and pulled the object Harvey had handed me out of my sleeve. It was a miniature camera, small enough to hide anywhere. It came with a note written in Harvey's small handwriting. Set it up in your room. Activated by movement. Recording goes to my server. I looked around, looking for a suitable location. Finally, I decided to mount the camera on a bookshelf, among the framed photos. It was almost invisible and fit in perfectly. Then I lay on the bed, pretending to rest, but really listening to the sounds in the house. I could hear Ethan talking on the phone in the living room, probably to Brooke. His voice sounded muffled, but I could make out individual phrases. Was with that lawyer. Something is suspected. We need to move fast. I closed my eyes and tried to collect my thoughts. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. Ethan obviously felt that his plan was in jeopardy and could go to extreme measures. I needed to be ready for anything. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages. Texted Harvey, camera set up. Ethan's nervous. Says we need to move faster. Stay in touch. The reply came almost immediately. Hang in there. The plan will be put into action tomorrow. I breathed a sigh of relief. Soon I'd have proof. And then Ethan and Brooke would realize they'd messed with the wrong old man. Harvey's plan worked even better than we expected. The next morning, Brooke got a call from her salon saying there was a short circuit and there was a risk of fire. She literally flew out of the house before she could even finish her morning coffee. Ethan, after a short hesitation, went with her. Obviously, he did not want to miss the opportunity to control the situation. As soon as their car was around the corner, an unremarkable plumbing service van pulled up in front of my house. Two men in overalls and carrying boxes of tools got out. I let them in, and only then did one of them introduce himself. Mike Dawson, private investigator. I work with Mr. Prescott, and this is Tony, the surveillance specialist. They acted quickly and professionally. They installed 6 hidden cameras in 40 minutes. In the kitchen, living room, my office, hallway, bathroom, and bedroom. The cameras are motion activated, Tony explained. The footage is transmitted to Mr. Prescott's secure server. No one but him has access to it. How do I know the cameras are working? I asked. You don't, Mike answered. That's good. That way you won't accidentally give away their presence. Just live your life as usual. We'll keep an eye out. When they left, I took a closer look at the camera locations. They were really inconspicuous, hidden in books, wall clocks, even the artificial plant Brooke had given me last Christmas. Ethan and Brooke returned 3 hours later, annoyed and tired. As I suspected, there was no short circuit in the cabin. Someone on the staff, obviously Harvey's man, had called to report the smell of burning, but when they arrived, all the salon employees were puzzled. An inspection of the electrical wiring revealed nothing. Someone must have been joking, Ethan said, plopping down on the couch in the living room. It wasn't very funny. It could have been that new guy, Ray, Brooke suggested nervously. I always thought there was something wrong with him. I pretended to be engrossed in reading the paper, smiling inwardly. The cameras were rolling, recording their every word and movement. Now all I had to do was wait for them to reveal their true intentions. The wait didn't take long. 2 days later, when I came down for breakfast, Ethan and Brooke were already sitting at the kitchen table, looking like they were about to tell me someone was dead. Dad, we need to talk, Ethan began as I sat down in my usual spot. Sure. I took the toast off my plate and buttered it, trying to look nonchalant. About what? Ethan and Brooke looked at each other. We're really worried about you, Ethan continued. Your condition deteriorating. What condition? I raised my eyebrows. I feel fine. Lawrence, Brooke intervened, calling me by my first name in a private conversation. We can see that you're getting confused, forgetting important things, putting yourself in danger. Like what? I took a bite of my toast, remaining unfazed. Yesterday you put your wallet in the washing machine, Ethan said. And the day before yesterday you forgot to turn off the stove. If Brooke hadn't noticed, there could have been a fire. I knew that was a lie. The kitchen camera captured Brooke leaving the burner on by herself and then calling Ethan and me over, pretending she'd just discovered it. I don't remember putting my wallet in the washing machine, I said, trying to sound confused. Exactly, Brooke exclaimed. You don't remember. That's the problem. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder, acting sympathetic. Dad, Brooke, and I have been thinking about this for a long time, and we've come to the conclusion that you need help. Professional help. You're going to send me to a psychiatrist? I acted scared. No, Ethan hurried to assure me. We just think that it would be better for you to live for a while in a special place where you will be taken care of. In a nursing home, I didn't soften the wording. A senior living center, Brooke corrected me. Pine Grove is a beautiful place. We've already gone there to see everything. You did? Without me? Now my outrage was genuine. I didn't expect them to go that far. We didn't want to bother you until we were sure it was the right place, Ethan explained. And it's really great. Big grounds, its own park, comfortable rooms. There is even an architecture club, so you can share your experiences. It's only temporary, Brooke added, seeing that I wasn't enthusiastic. Until we find a good caregiver to live here with you. I remained silent, contemplating the situation. On the one hand, I wanted to tell them what I thought of them immediately. On the other, if I agreed to their plan, it would give me the opportunity to gather more evidence of their manipulations. When do you want me to move there? I finally asked. They looked at each other again, clearly surprised by my accommodating attitude. Actually, Ethan began, we were thinking about tomorrow. They just got a nice room overlooking the park. If we don't take it now, we'll have to wait for who knows how long. So soon? I shook my head. I need to pack, to get ready. We'll help you pack, Brooke said quickly. It won't take long. You don't need to take a lot of stuff. I realized they were in a hurry. The cruise they were talking about was probably coming up. Okay, I sighed. If you think it's necessary, I trust your judgment. The relief on their faces was almost comical. Ethan even stood up and hugged me for the first time in years. Thanks, Dad, he said. You won't regret it. You'll love it there, I promise. After breakfast, when Ethan left to call Pine Grove to confirm my arrival, I discreetly sent a text to Harvey. They're making their move. They're moving me to a nursing home tomorrow. Need to meet urgently. The reply came a few minutes later. Be at your place in an hour. I'll tell them I'm here to help with the paperwork. When Harvey arrived, Ethan and Brooke were already planning my move. They were making a list of things to take with them, discussing how they would visit me. At least once a week, Dad, we promise. And had even started packing some of my things into a suitcase. Harvey! Ethan exclaimed as he came into the living room. We were just about to call you. Really? Harvey raised an eyebrow skeptically. What's the occasion? We have good news, Brooke smiled her fake smile. Lawrence has agreed to stay at the Pine Grove for a while. Do you know the place? I've heard of it, Harvey answered dryly. And how long is for a while? Well, until we find a suitable caregiver, Ethan said. That could take a few weeks or months. I understand, Lawrence. You want me to help with the paperwork? Harvey turned to me. Yes, I nodded. I, Sonneborn. We'll need to sign some papers, I suppose. Naturally, Harvey turned to Ethan. I'd like to talk to your father alone. Legal matters, you understand. Of course. Ethan was obviously displeased, but couldn't object without risking looking suspicious. Brooke and I will go upstairs and gather the rest of our things. When they left, Harvey walked quickly over to me and spoke in a low voice. Are you sure you want to go through with this? We've already gathered enough evidence of their manipulations. I can show them the tapes right now and stop this. No, I said firmly. I want to see how far they're willing to go. And besides, I suspect they plan to leave on their cruise as soon as they put me in Pine Grove. That would be further proof of their bad faith. All right, Harvey nodded. But I don't like it. What if they try to get you to sign some financial documents? I won't, I said firmly. And besides, we have the power of attorney I signed for you after Olivia died. Ethan doesn't know about it. Yeah, but if they prove that you're incapacitated, that power of attorney can be challenged. Sure, then we need to act fast. I lowered my voice when I heard footsteps on the stairs. As soon as they leave for their cruise, get me out of there. Harvey only had time to nod when Ethan and Brooke walked into the room, laden with boxes of my stuff. So, did we discuss the legal issues? Ethan asked with feigned interest. Yes, Harvey answered. I explained to Lawrence his rights and obligations in connection with his temporary stay at Pine Grove. We also discussed who would pay the bills for the house in his absence. Oh, don't worry about that, Dad, Ethan said quickly. Brooke and I will take care of everything. I don't doubt that, I replied dryly. The rest of the day passed in the bustle of packing. I tried to look calm, but inside I was seething with rage. Every time Ethan or Brooke showed fake concern, I wanted to tell them what I thought of them, but I held back, reminding myself that soon they'd get what they deserved. The next morning, Ethan pulled his SUV up to the house. We loaded my stuff into the trunk, and I took one last look back at the house I'd designed and built for my family. The house that Olivia and I had been so happy in, and which was now a battleground between me and our son. Don't worry, Dad, Ethan said, noticing the look in my eyes. You'll be back soon as we find the right nurse. I didn't say anything, got in the car and shut the door. Pine Grove was exactly as I'd imagined. A modern two-story building surrounded by a well-maintained park. On the facade was a sign with the name and slogan, Comfort and Care for the Golden Age. Inside, we were greeted by a friendly receptionist with a professional smile who ushered us into the director's office. The director, Mrs. Parker, a middle-aged woman with a neat haircut and attentive eyes, explained the rules of the facility in detail, showed me the schedule of classes and activities, and assured me that I would be comfortable and safe here. We have 24-hour medical supervision, she said. We have 5 delicious meals a day, daily walks in the park, and various hobby groups. You won't be bored, Mr. Whitmore. I nodded and smiled, playing the part of the malleable old man who accepted his fate. Ethan and Brooke looked pleased. Everything was going according to their plan. After signing all the necessary documents, fortunately, there was nothing that would give Ethan control over my finances. Mrs. Parker invited me to look at my room. The room was decent enough, spacious with a large window overlooking the park, a private bathroom, and even a small balcony. There was a desk, a comfortable chair, a bed, and a closet. Everything you need is here, Mrs. Parker said. If you need anything extra, just ask the staff. Ethan and Brooke helped me unpack, arrange the pictures on the table, and hung the clothes in the closet. All this time they were unusually attentive and caring. A real show for Mrs. Parker. Well, Dad, said Ethan when we finished, now you have everything you need. We'll visit you regularly. Of course, I smiled. I'll be waiting. Mr. Whitmore. Mrs. Parker turned to me. Lunch will be in an hour. Your son and daughter-in-law are welcome to join us if they wish. Ethan and Brooke looked at each other. Unfortunately, we have some pressing business to attend to, Ethan said, but we'll be back soon, maybe even tomorrow. Of course, Mrs. Parker nodded. Visiting hours are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. When it was time to say goodbye, Ethan hugged me with unexpected warmth. For a moment, I almost believed that somewhere deep inside he still cared about me. But then I noticed him wink at Brooke over my shoulder, and the illusion dissipated. "See you soon, Dad," he said. "Get used to the new place. You'll be well taken care of here." "See you, Lawrence." Brooke hugged me too, but her embrace was formal and cold. I stood at the window of my new room and watched them get into the car and drive away. As soon as their car was out of sight, I pulled out my phone and dialed Harvey's number. "They did it," I said. "They left me at the Pine Grove." "I'm on my way," Harvey answered. "I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. We've put a trace on their cell phones. If they go to the airport, we'll know." Harvey arrived as promised 20 minutes later. We were sitting in my room discussing the next steps when his phone beeped. "They're heading to the airport," he said, looking up the information. I was right. They plan to fly out as soon as they get rid of you. We waited another 2 hours. Finally, Harvey's phone beeped again. "They've checked in for a flight to Miami," he reported. "From there, they're probably going on a cruise to the Caribbean. Then it's time to act." I pulled out my phone. "They think I can't manipulate them, that I'm a helpless old man who can be tricked and abandoned. It's time to show them they're wrong." I wrote a quick message to Ethan. "I've rewritten the inheritance." Then hit send and put the phone on the table. "Do you think this will work?" Harvey asked. "Oh yeah," I smiled. Knowing Ethan, he'd be on the plane right now ready to take off, and this message would ruin his entire vacation. After sending the message to Ethan, I felt strangely relieved, as if a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Harvey stayed with me for another hour as we discussed the next steps. He offered to pick me up from Pine Grove immediately, but I declined. "Not yet," I said. "If I disappeared right after they left, it might arouse suspicion. Besides, I'm curious about how things really work here." Harvey reluctantly agreed, but he made me promise to call him every day and report anything strange. Before he left, he handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "A mini camera with a microphone," he replied. "Just in case. It records on the internal memory and runs on battery power for a week. If you see anything suspicious, turn it on." I tucked the device into my shirt pocket and walked Harvey out. Once I was alone, I looked around carefully for the first time. Pine Grove wasn't the gloomy place I'd imagined. Spacious corridors with large windows, light-colored walls, comfortable furniture. The air smelled not of drugs, but of fresh baked goods, probably from the dining room. I decided to explore the grounds. Walking down the first-floor hallway, I found the common living room, a large room with many armchairs and sofas, a television, bookshelves, and tables for board games. Several older people were sitting there, some reading, some watching TV, two men playing chess. "Dash, welcome to our club," came a cheerful voice behind me. I turned around and saw an elderly woman sitting in a wheelchair. She looked about 75, but her eyes were bright and lively, and her smile was genuine. "My name is Edith Talbot," she introduced herself. "And you must be the newcomer?" "Dash Lawrence Whitmore," I held out my hand. "Nice to meet you." "Likewise," she shook my hand firmly. "Don't just stand in the doorway. Come on in. Make yourself comfortable and tell us how you got here." I made my way into the room and several people turned in my direction with interest. "A typical story," I said, deciding to be frank. "Someone and my son and his wife think I'm out of my mind and have decided to get rid of me while they enjoy a cruise in the Caribbean." I expected shock or embarrassment, but instead heard laughter. "Join the club!" exclaimed a gray-haired man sitting in a chair by the window. "I'm Henry Caldwell. My kids sent me down here because I refused to sell the house and move into their basement." "Sarah Pemberton," said the elegant lady with the book in her hand. "My nephew put me here temporarily 3 years ago, right after I signed my apartment over to him." "You see, Lawrence, you're in good company." Edith moved closer. "We're all victims of caring relatives." "Not all of us," objected the thin man who was playing chess. "I, for one, chose this place myself." Frank Dawson, former math professor. "After his wife died, the house got too big and empty, and here at least he had someone to talk to." His chess partner, Hugh Bishop, nodded. "And I'm here voluntarily. After my third heart attack, the doctors insisted on constant observation. At least here I don't get shaken every half hour like in the hospital." During the next hour, I got acquainted with almost all the inhabitants of the living room. They turned out to be interesting, educated people with rich life experience. None of them looked out of their minds, as Ethan and Brooke claimed. When it was time for lunch, Edith offered to show me the dining room. I pushed her wheelchair down the hall, and she explained the daily routine at Pine Grove with the enthusiasm of a tour guide. Breakfast from 7 to 9, lunch from 12 to 2, dinner from 6 to 8. Between meals, you can always ask for tea or coffee in the kitchen. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, group classes with a physiotherapist. On Wednesdays, movie screenings in the common living room. On Fridays, music evenings. Sometimes there's even dancing. Dancing? I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Don't look at my chair, Edith grinned. I dance with my hands and my head. Besides, not everyone here is as broken as I am. The dining room was a bright room with many small tables. Edith introduced me to her friends, and I joined their company. The lunch was surprisingly good. Fresh vegetable soup, fried chicken with mashed potatoes, and apple pie for dessert. Did you think they were feeding us junk food here? Edith asked with a laugh, noticing my surprise. Pine Grove is an expensive place. I bet your son chose it not because of the quality of service, but because of prestige, so he wouldn't be ashamed to tell his friends where he sent his father. You're probably right, I nodded. They don't skimp on my money. Oh, they pay for everything with your money? Edith shook her head. All the more dishonest of them. After lunch, I went back to my room to get some rest. Lying on my bed, I reflected on how strange things had turned out. I had expected Pine Grove to be a real prison, but instead I found friendly people in quite comfortable conditions. In the evening, there was a knock on the door. A young man in a staff uniform stood on the doorstep. "Dash, Mr. Whitmore?" he asked. "I'm Ryan Murphy, your adjustment coordinator. It's my job to help new residents get settled in. Do you have any questions or requests?" Ryan proved to be a pleasant conversationalist. He patiently explained all the rules of the facility, explained the services and activities available, and showed me how to use the staff call system. "What about going outside the facility?" I asked. "Can I leave Pine Grove?" "Of course," Ryan answered. "You're not a prisoner, Mr. Whitmore. You just need to let the staff know where you're going and when you plan to return. It's advisable to have an escort for long absences, but that's a recommendation, not a requirement." "What about phone calls? Are they tapped?" Ryan looked at me in surprise. "No, of course not. That would be a breach of confidentiality. You have a private phone, and you can talk to anyone you want. The only restriction is that you don't disturb other residents after 10 o'clock at night." After Ryan left, I called Harvey and told him my impressions. "It doesn't sound as bad as we feared," he said, "but still be on the lookout and keep in touch regularly." "I will," I promised. "By the way, has there been any reaction from Ethan to my message?" "Not yet," Harvey answered, "but their plane is probably still in the air. We'll find out tomorrow." I spent the next few days exploring Pine Grove and getting to know its inhabitants. To my surprise, most of them turned out to be interesting people with a wealth of life experience. There were former teachers, doctors, engineers, even one retired judge. Many like me were here involuntarily, but in time they accepted it and even found certain advantages in it. I became especially close to Edith. Despite her wheelchair and age, she retained incredible energy and optimism. In the past, Edith had been a journalist, traveled halfway around the world, interviewing famous people. Now she ran a small creative writing club for those who wanted to participate and was an unspoken leader among the residents of Pine Grove. On the third day of my stay, Edith took me aside after breakfast. "Lawrence, I've noticed that you're not like most of the newcomers. You're too deliberate. Most people come here disoriented, scared. You knew what you were getting into from the start." "You're very observant," I smiled. "It's professional," she shrugged. "So what's really wrong with you? You said your son thinks you're out of your mind, but that's clearly not true." I hesitated for a moment. Something about Edith was credible, and I decided to tell her the truth. About Ethan and Brooke's manipulations, about the overheard conversations, about the hidden cameras, and about my plan to teach them a lesson. Edith listened without interrupting, only shaking her head and occasionally frowning. When I finished, she was silent for a while, and then she said, "You know, I thought I couldn't be surprised by anything anymore. But your story, it's a new level of sleaze. So what do you plan to do next? Gather enough evidence of their manipulation, change the will, and possibly sue, I replied. But to do that, I need to contact my attorney off the phone. I don't like the idea that all our conversations could be tapped. You're paranoid, Edith grinned. But I understand you. You know what? Ryan, that young employee who visited you, is my grandson. He's the only one in the family who visits me regularly. He's a good kid. You can trust him. If you want, he can help you meet with your lawyer in confidence. On him. That would be wonderful, I looked at Edith gratefully. But wouldn't he get in trouble? Not if no one finds out, she said with a wink. I'll talk to him tonight. As promised, Edith organized my meeting with Harvey. Ryan helped me sneak out of the building through the service entrance during the afternoon break, when most of the residents were in their rooms and the staff was busy cleaning the dining room. Harvey was waiting for me in his car in the parking lot of a nearby supermarket. How are you holding up? He asked when I sat down next to him. Better than I expected, I answered honestly. Pine Grove turned out to be not such a terrible place, but I still want to get out of there as soon as possible. Minus Ethan called, Harvey said. Or rather, tried to call you. When he couldn't, he called me. He was very excited about your message about the inheritance. What did you tell him? That I didn't know anything, Harvey grinned. That you hadn't discussed the changes in the will with me. He was furious. I can imagine, I smiled, picturing Ethan's face. He'd ruined his whole vacation, and this was just the beginning. So you really want to change the will? Harvey asked. Yes, I answered firmly. After everything that's happened, I don't want Ethan and Brooke to get a dime of my estate. I understand, Harvey nodded. I have all the necessary documents with me. We need to discuss the details. For the next hour, we worked on a new will. I had decided to leave the bulk of my estate to a charitable foundation that supports young architects, a cause to which I had devoted my life. Some of the money was to go to create a special program at Pine Grove for elderly people abandoned by relatives. What about the house? Harvey asked. I mean, it's dear to you, I wondered. The house I'd designed for Olivia and me held so many memories, but now it was soaked with the bitterness of betrayal. Sell it, I finally decided. Dash split the money between the foundation and Pine Grove. Let them create the Olivia Whitmore Library. Harvey wrote down my wishes and we signed the necessary documents. Two of his assistants, who were waiting in another car, acted as witnesses. Sir, it's official now, Harvey said, tucking the papers into his briefcase. Ethan and Brooke will get nothing. Except what they've already spent on this cruise, I added with a bitter chuckle. Harvey drove me back to the Pine Grove, where Ryan was waiting at the service entrance. Thanks for your help, I said to the young man as we walked down the hallway to my room. You're welcome, Mr. Whitmore, he replied. Grandma Edith told me your story. What your son and his wife did is wrong. I'm glad to help. You're a good grandson, Ryan. I put my hand on his shoulder. Edith is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, he replied sincerely. She taught me a lot of things, including the fact that old age is no reason to treat a person with less respect. In my room, I found several missed calls from Ethan. He had also left a voicemail message. Dad, what do you mean I rewrote the inheritance? What did you do? Call me right away. I decided not to call him back. Let him suffer the unknown. It would be part of his lesson. In the evening, I joined Edith and the other residents in the common living room. There was a musical evening. A local choir was performing songs from old musicals. Although the singers were as elderly as the audience, they sang with surprising enthusiasm and quite a bit of skill. Join us, Edith suggested after the performance. The choir lacks male voices. I've never sung, I objected. It's a good time to start, she said with a wink. It's never too late to learn something new. That night I felt part of the community for the first time in a long time. Despite the circumstances that had brought me to Pine Grove, I had found people here who understood me, shared my interests, and didn't consider me a burden. The next day, Ryan brought me a note from Harvey. It's all official. Ethan called again, demanding information. I told him you did change your will, but the details are confidential. I smiled, imagining Ethan's reaction. He must be freaking out right now instead of enjoying the cruise. In the evening, Edith invited me to the Pine Grove residents meeting at the library. It turned out that the nursing home residents had their own informal council that discussed problems and suggestions for improving the living conditions. We are not just passive recipients of services, Edith explained. We are actively involved in shaping the environment around us. The issues discussed at the meeting range from the quality of food to organizing new hobby groups. I was impressed by how seriously the administration took the wishes of the residents. You see, Edith said after the meeting, it's not as bad as many people think. Sure, it's not a home, but it's not a prison either. You're right, I agreed. But still, I was put here by deceit, and I'm not going to put up with it. That's right, she nodded. No one should decide for you where and how you should live, especially using such dirty methods. Over the next few days, I continued to ignore Ethan's calls. He called several times a day, leaving increasingly agitated messages, but I didn't answer. Let him be nervous. Instead, I got busy researching the history of Pine Grove. It turned out that the facility was founded 40 years ago by a philanthropist who faced the challenge of caring for elderly parents himself. He created a place where seniors could live with dignity while maintaining as much independence as possible and getting the help they needed. Since then, Pine Grove has grown into a prestigious facility with an impeccable reputation. Qualified professionals worked here, many of whom genuinely cared about the well-being of the residents. One evening, as I sat in my room going over the papers Ryan had brought me from Harvey, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Parker, the director of Pine Grove, stood on the doorstep. Mr. Whitmore, she said. May I come in? I need to talk to you. I invited her into the room, wondering what it might be about. Your son called today, she began. He's very concerned that he can't get in touch with you. I know, I replied calmly. He leaves me messages. May I ask why you're not answering? Because I have nothing to say to him. I looked her straight in the eye. Mrs. Parker, I believe you're a perceptive person. You've probably noticed that I don't suffer from dementia or any other cognitive impairment. She was silent for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I noticed. And frankly, I was surprised when your son insisted otherwise. Because he's lying, I said simply. He and his wife have been trying to convince everyone, including myself, that I'm losing my mind. All this to control my finances. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Parker frowned. I have proof. I pulled out my phone and showed her some videos that Harvey had sent me from the surveillance cameras in my house. She watched them carefully, and her face grew serious. Mr. Whitmore, if everything is as you say, why are you still here? You could leave at any time. I know, I smiled, but I like it here for now. Besides, I want to teach my son a lesson. Let him think his plan worked, and then he'll know the truth. Mrs. Parker looked at me thoughtfully. So, you're here voluntarily? I am now, I nodded, although I was originally brought here because of Ethan and Brooke's manipulations. I see, she stood up. In that case, I won't interfere. It's your own business. But if you need help or support, my door is always open. Thank you, Mrs. Parker. I was touched by her understanding. I appreciate it. After the principal left, I felt strangely relieved. Now even the Pine Grove administration was on my side. The circle of support was widening. I called Harvey and told him about my conversation with Mrs. Parker. That's good, he approved. The more people know the truth, the better for us. By the way, I checked. Ethan and Brooke should be back in 10 days. Are you ready for their return? More than ready, I answered. I have proof of their manipulations, a new will, and the support of people I trust. I'm ready for the final act of this drama. Good, Harvey said. Then we'll wait for their return and prepare for the denouement. As I went to bed that night, I thought about how strangely my life had turned. Until a month ago, I was a lonely old man, trapped in my own home, subjected to constant manipulation by my own son. Now I was living in a nursing home, but surrounded by friends and allies, and prepared to fight back against those who wanted to use me. Life is full of irony, and sometimes it holds the most unexpected surprises. As an architect, I've always known that to build something new, sometimes you have to destroy the old. Perhaps the shattering of my illusions about my family was necessary so that I could build a new life. Not the one I had planned, but perhaps no less fulfilling. My days at Pine Grove took on a certain rhythm. In the morning, breakfast in the dining room with Edith and other new friends, followed by a walk in the park or participation in morning exercises for seniors. After lunch, I usually read in the library or joined a class in the architecture club, which did exist, just as Ethan had said. Evenings were spent in the common living room talking, playing board games, or watching movies. I was almost starting to get used to this new life when, on the fifth day of my stay, my phone literally exploded with calls and messages. Ethan was calling every half hour, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. "Dad, call me back immediately." "What do you mean you rewrote the inheritance?" "What happened?" "Dad, I've been trying to reach you all day. Please pick up the phone." "I'm worried. Lawrence Whitmore, if you hear this message, call me back immediately. It's extremely important." I listened to each message with grim satisfaction, but did not call back. Occasional text messages from Brooke also came in, more subdued, but no less insistent. "Lawrence, please contact us. Ethan is very worried. We can arrange a video call if it's more convenient for you. Please let us know you're okay." I showed these messages to Edith as we sat in the park during our usual morning walk. "Enjoying their panic?" she asked with a sly smile. "I'll admit it, yes." I wasn't being hypocritical. After all they'd done, it was nice to see them trapped in the unknown. "I can't blame you," Edith nodded. "Simran, but you realize that they are not concerned for your welfare, but for their money, don't you?" "Of course," I grinned bitterly. If Ethan was really worried about me, he would have called Pine Grove to find out about my condition. But he's afraid that here he'll be told I'm fine, and his plan will unravel. So he keeps calling me directly. "Have you thought of answering him?" Edith asked. "I can, just to hear what he had to say." I thought about it. It was an interesting idea. Maybe I should tease Ethan a little, give him hope, and then leave him in the dark again. "Not right now," I said after a pause. "Let him suffer for a while. I'd respond when it had maximum effect." That same day, Harvey sent me an email. Ethan called me again. He was extremely agitated, demanded information about the new will. I told him I had no right to divulge the details without your permission. He threatened to sue. I replied, "Let him threaten. We have proof of his manipulations. If it goes to court, it will only make things worse for him." That same evening, I got a call from Harvey himself. "Lawrence, the situation is getting interesting," he said. "Ethan has hired another lawyer, one Gregory Page. He's trying to get access to your new will." "On what grounds?" I asked. "He claims you're incapacitated and couldn't make those decisions on your own. Says he has medical reports. From Dr. Nielsen, I believe." I shook my head. "The same one who'd never examined me, but was willing to give an opinion based on Ethan and Brooke's observations." "Exactly," Harvey confirmed. "But don't worry. We have Dr. Phelps and Dr. Ramsey's report on your full capacity, plus videotapes that prove Ethan and Brooke's manipulation. Page isn't getting anywhere." "What about the videotape of the signing of the new will?" I asked. "Does it exist?" "Of course," Harvey assured me. "I had it covered. We recorded the whole process of discussing and signing the documents. The video clearly shows that you were fully aware of what you were doing and were not under pressure." "Great, I'm relieved. So the new will can't be contested?" "Theoretically, it could, but the chances are slim," Harvey explained, "especially considering all the evidence we have against Ethan and Brooke. If they sue, we'll present that evidence in court, and they'll have to explain themselves to the law." After talking to Harvey, I decided to check my email. It revealed several emails from Ethan, each more desperate than the last. In the last one, he wrote, "Dad, I don't understand what's going on. If you're mad at us for leaving you at Pine Grove, understand. We did it for your own good. You were becoming forgetful, sometimes dangerous to yourself. We were worried about you. And now you're not answering your phone and apparently you've rewritten your will. Please, let's talk. We can make things right." I chuckled bitterly as I read those lines. Even now that his plan had failed, Ethan continued to insist on his version of events. He still wouldn't admit that he'd intentionally manipulated me, trying to make me look crazy. I showed Edith the letter during lunch. "Shara, what hypocrisy," she said indignantly as she read it. "We did it for your own good." It's a classic gaslighting tactic to make the victim believe that everything is done in good faith. "Exactly," I agreed. "And the sad thing is, part of me still wants to believe him. After all, he is my son." "I understand," Edith touched my arm gently. "But sometimes you have to accept the bitter truth. Not all relatives are worthy of our love and trust." That night I couldn't sleep for a long time, thinking about Edith's words. Was I really ready to completely break off my relationship with Ethan? Despite everything that had happened, he was still my only son, a part of me and Olivia. The thought of never interacting with him again was painful. But then I remembered all the humiliation I'd endured over the past few months. How Ethan and Brooke had intentionally hidden my belongings, messed up my medications, spread lies about my mental state to friends and acquaintances. How they planned to control my finances, leaving me helpless in a nursing home while they themselves enjoyed a luxurious vacation. No, such a betrayal could not be forgiven or forgotten. Perhaps someday I would be able to talk to Ethan calmly, but trust was broken forever. The next morning I was in for a surprise. During breakfast, Mrs. Parker came to my table. Mr. Whitmore, she said. Your son called the Pine Grove administration. He wanted information about your condition. And what did you tell him, I asked. That you feel fine, are active in the community, and show no signs of dementia or other cognitive impairment? She smiled slightly. He was surprised. I can imagine. I couldn't hold back a chuckle. What did he say? He said there must have been a mistake, that his father was suffering from the early stages of dementia, with periods of lucidity alternating with periods of confusion. I replied that in the entire time you have been here, none of our specialists have noticed any signs of confusion in you. He must have been furious, I suggested. More like panicked, Mrs. Parker clarified. He said he'd interrupt his vacation immediately and come back to check on you personally. That was news. I didn't expect Ethan and Brooke to interrupt their precious cruise. So the situation was indeed serious, at least in their eyes. I immediately called Harvey and told him the new information. Interesting, he said thoughtfully. I didn't expect them to come back early. This changes our plans. What do you mean? I asked. We need to be ready for them, Harvey explained. If they show up at the Pine Grove, you'll have to meet them. Are you ready for that? I wondered. Was I ready to face Ethan and Brooke, knowing everything I knew now? Was I ready to tell them everything that was on my mind? Yes, I said firmly, I am. But I want you to be there for this meeting. I will, Harvey assured me. I'll be there. And Lawrence, it might be a good idea to prepare a formal statement to the police about the attempted fraud. Just in case. Something, you think it'll come to that? I was surprised. I hope not, Harvey replied. But it's better to be ready for anything. Ethan and Brooke might feel cornered, and people in that state sometimes do desperate things. After talking to Harvey, I felt the need to be alone. I went to Pine Grove Park and sat on a bench for a long time, watching the ducks swimming in the pond. Thoughts of my upcoming meeting with Ethan and Brooke kept me in suspense. What would I tell them? How would I explain my actions? Would I be cold and reserved, or would I let the emotions that had built up over months of humiliation and manipulation come out? I was so deep in thought that I didn't notice Edith's wheelchair pulling up next to me. Are you sad? She asked, breaking my thoughts. More like preparing for battle, I replied with a bitter smile. Is your son coming back? Edith guessed. Yes, I nodded. Mrs. Parker told him I was perfectly well, and he decided to cut short his vacation. Apparently, the fear of losing his inheritance was stronger than the desire to enjoy the cruise. No wonder, Edith snorted. Money is often more important than family ties, especially for people like your son and his wife. Sonarm, you know, I said after a pause, I still can't believe my own son is capable of such a thing. Where did I go wrong in his upbringing? Don't blame yourself. Edith shook her head. Sometimes children don't grow up the way we raise them. The influence of peers, of society, of one's own character, all play a part. Maybe, I sighed, but I still feel responsible. Maybe I was too hard on him as a child, or worked too hard and didn't pay enough attention to him. Or maybe he's just a selfish person who took the easy way out, Edith objected. Not all our actions have root causes, Lawrence. Sometimes people just make the wrong choices. Her words made me think. Maybe I was digging too deep, trying to find an explanation for Ethan's behavior. Maybe it was simpler. He wanted my money and was willing to do anything to get it. In any case, Edith continued, you need to decide what you're going to say to him when you meet him, and what consequences his actions will have for him. I have already decided, I said firmly. He won't get a cent of my fortune. I've completely changed my will. And where will the money go if it's no secret? Edith asked. Most of it will go to a fund to support young architects, I replied. I have always believed in the need to support talented young people. Architecture is not just a profession, it is a calling. But without support, many talents remain undiscovered. That's a worthy goal, Edith approved. Another part of the money will go to the Olivia Library in Pine Grove, I continued. My wife loved books, and I think she would love the idea of having her name associated with a place where people can find solace and joy in reading. That's wonderful, Lawrence. Edith's eyes moistened. Olivia must have been an amazing woman. She was, I felt a lump in my throat. You know, sometimes I think that if she were alive, none of this would have happened. She always had a way of smoothing things over between Ethan and me. Maybe she could have prevented him from becoming what he became. Or maybe he was always like that, just hiding it well, Edith said. Sometimes the loss of a loved one reveals the true nature of other family members. We sat by the pond for a long time, talking about life, family, betrayal, and forgiveness. And Edith told me about her daughter, who only visited her on holidays, always in a hurry to leave, and her son, who cut off communication completely after she refused to sell the family home and move in with him. The only one who really cares about me is Ryan, my grandson, she said with a sad smile. And you know what? I signed over my entire inheritance to him. I don't want my children to know about it until after I'm dead. You're a hard woman, Edith. I couldn't hold back a smile. I am a fair woman, she corrected me. And so are you. We just give everyone what they deserve. That evening, I got a message from Harvey. Ethan and Brooke flew out of Miami. They'll be in Bangor tomorrow morning. Get ready to meet them. I felt my heart rate increase. The confrontation I'd been both expecting and dreading was close at hand. I had to be ready for anything. Before I went to bed, I went over once more all the evidence of Ethan and Brooke's manipulations that I had on my phone. Videos, photos, audio recordings of their conversations when they thought I couldn't hear. It all painted a ruthless picture of betrayal and deceit. I also reread the new will, a copy of which Harvey had sent me. The wording was clear and unambiguous. I, Lawrence James Whitmore, being of sound mind and sound judgment, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including real estate, financial assets, personal effects and collections, as follows. 70% of all my assets shall be transferred to the Lawrence and Olivia Whitmore Young Architects Fund to be established upon my death according to the attached instructions. 20% shall be transferred to Pine Grove for the establishment and maintenance of the Olivia Whitmore Library and for the improvement of facilities for the residents. The remaining 10% shall be distributed equally among the residents of Pine Grove at the time of my death. To my son, Ethan Lawrence Whitmore, I leave nothing but $1 to show that his exclusion from the will was a deliberate and not an accidental omission. The last paragraph was particularly important from a legal standpoint. As Harvey explained, by leaving Ethan a token amount of money, I was depriving him of the ability to contest the will on the grounds that it had been forgotten or omitted. I turned off the light and tried to fall asleep, but thoughts of my upcoming meeting with Ethan and Brooke kept me awake. What would they say? How would they defend themselves? Would they admit their guilt, or would they continue to insist on their version? Eventually, exhaustion took its toll, and I drifted into a restless sleep. I dreamed of Olivia sitting on the edge of our bed in the house I'd designed for us. She was looking at me with a sad smile and saying something, but I couldn't make out the words. I tried to move closer to her, but she kept staying at the same distance, unreachable as she had been all these years since her death. I woke up at dawn, feeling strangely calm. The dream about Olivia, though sad, left a sense of her presence, her support. I knew she would have approved of my actions. Olivia had always valued honesty and fairness above all else. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The sun was just beginning to rise above the horizon, coloring the sky with soft pinks and golds. The new day brought with it a crucial meeting, a confrontation that would put an end to this unpleasant history. I was ready to meet Ethan and Brooke face to face, ready to tell them everything that had built up in my heart, ready to show them the consequences of their actions. And most importantly, I was ready to start a new chapter of my life, whatever it might be. The morning was clear and sunny, but I sensed a storm was coming. Harvey called me early, letting me know that Ethan and Brooke had landed at the Bangor airport and were on their way to Pine Grove. I'll be there in 30 minutes, he said. Don't start the conversation without me. I assured him I would wait for him to arrive, and headed out for breakfast. The dining room was unusually quiet, as if all the residents of the nursing home could sense the tension in the air. "Ready for the big day?" Edith asked, rolling her wheelchair over to my table. "As ready as I can be." I tried to smile, but it didn't come out very convincingly. "Don't worry," she patted my arm. "We're all with you." "Right, guys?" At our table sat Henry, Sarah, and Frank, my new friends from Pine Grove. They all knew my story and expressed their full support. "That son of yours tries anything, he's going to have to deal with me," grumbled Henry, a former boxer who was still in impressive physical shape despite his 76 years. "Thank you, but I'm hoping to avoid a physical confrontation," I replied with a slight smile. "Harvey will bring all the evidence of their manipulations. I think that will be enough." After breakfast, I went back to my room and waited. Time dragged agonizingly slow. I went over in my head all the possible scenarios of the upcoming conversation, choosing the words I wanted to say to Ethan and Brooke. I wanted to be cold and reserved, but I knew that emotions could take over. At 10:30, Harvey called, "I'm in the parking lot. Ethan and Brooke just got here. They look worried." "I'll meet you in the lobby," I said, and headed out of the room. In the hallway, I ran into Ryan, who was carrying a stack of clean towels. Mr. Whitmore," he paused. "Grandma said today is a big day for you. If you need any help, I'm here for you." "Thank you, Ryan." I was touched by his concern. I appreciated it. As I walked down the hall, I saw Harvey talking to Mrs. Parker. They both looked serious and focused. "Ah, Lawrence," Harvey spotted me and walked over. Mrs. Parker has given us a conference room to talk in. Ethan and Brooke are waiting there." "Do they know you're here?" I asked. "No," Harvey shook his head. "I asked Mrs. Parker not to tell them about it. I want to see their reaction when we walk in together." Mrs. Parker escorted us to the conference room, a small but cozy room with an oval table and soft armchairs. Through the glass door, I saw Ethan and Brooke sitting with their backs to the entrance. They were arguing quietly about something, not noticing us. "Ready?" Harvey asked. I took a deep breath and nodded. Mrs. Parker opened the door and we walked in. Ethan jumped up as soon as he saw me. "Dad!" he exclaimed with a strained smile. "Finally! We've been so excited." He rushed toward me with open arms but stopped when he saw Harvey. "What's he doing here?" His smile disappeared instantly. "I invited him," I replied calmly, walking over to the table and sitting down across from them. "Harvey is my lawyer and friend. He's here to help clear the air." Brooke, who had been silent until then, fixed her hair nervously. "What situation, Lawrence?" "We just came to visit you. We were told that you were feeling fine, and we were so happy to hear that." I looked at her closely, tanned, with expensive new jewelry around her neck and wrists. Obviously, the cruise wasn't their only entertainment, and all of my money, which they were trying so hard to get. "Really?" I wasn't hiding my sarcasm. "I thought you should be upset. I mean, if I'm okay, it means your plan failed." "What plan?" Ethan gave me a puzzled look. "What are you talking about, Dad?" "About your plan to declare me incompetent and get control over my finances," I said quietly but firmly. "About the manipulations you've been carrying out for months. The lies you've been spreading among my friends and acquaintances." "This is some kind of misunderstanding," Brooke interjected. "We never—" "Stop it!" I interrupted her abruptly. "No more lies. I have proof. All this time I knew what you were doing." Harvey pulled a clipboard out of his briefcase and placed it on the table. "Here are the videos from Lawrence's house," he said. The cameras were set up in different rooms. They recorded you moving his things into inappropriate places, discussing mixing up his medications, planning to put him in Pine Grove, and going on a cruise. Ethan and Brooke's faces changed. Shock, disbelief, and then the realization that they had been caught red-handed. "This can't be happening," Ethan muttered. "We've never. This is illegal. You had no right to install cameras without our consent." "Lawrence had every right to install cameras in his own house," Harvey replied coldly, "especially since he had reason to suspect fraud." "Fraud?" Brooke laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous. We were just looking out for you, Lawrence. You were really getting forgetful." "No," I shook my head. "It was you who did everything you could to make me seem forgetful. You hid my things, moved them around, and then found them in strange places. You discouraged my friends from talking to me by telling them about my supposed dementia. You were even willing to manipulate my medications, which could have had serious consequences for my health. Ethan sat with his head down. His shoulders slumped as if all the air had been let out of him. We never meant to hurt you, he mumbled. We just, you just wanted my money, I finished for him, and you were willing to do anything to get it, even declaring your own father crazy. Sure, son. It was Brooke's idea, Ethan suddenly shouted, pointing at his wife. She said it was the only way to get access to your accounts. It's not like you've never told us about all your assets. Brooke turned sharply toward him, her eyes widening with shock and betrayal. How could you? She exclaimed. You yourself said your father was becoming a danger to himself. You yourself suggested Pine Grove. I watched their altercation with bitter satisfaction. How quickly they began to accuse each other when they found themselves caught. That's enough, I said, as their mutual accusations began to recur. It doesn't matter which of you came up with the plan. You both participated in it. You both betrayed my trust. And now what? Ethan asked, his voice shaking. You're going to sue us? You're going to put your own son in jail? I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. But one thing I know for sure is that you will never get another dime of my fortune. I've rewritten my will. We know, Brooke said quietly. That's why we came here. We wanted to, make things right. Make things right? I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. What kind of fix? More manipulation? More lies? No, Dad, Ethan looked up at me. We're really sorry. We went too far. Yeah, I don't know what came over us. Brooke and I were going through some financial difficulties, and when we saw you living alone in that big house, with that kind of fortune, you decided you were entitled to it, I finished for him. That I'm old and useless and you can just take everything I've earned in my life. No, Ethan exclaimed. Not like that. We thought it was best for everyone. You get the care, and you get my money, I interrupted him again. Except you didn't think about the fact that I'm still sane, that I can see your manipulations, that I have friends who can help me uncover the truth. There was silence in the room. Ethan and Brooke sat with their heads down, not daring to look me in the eye. Harvey watched the scene silently, ready to intervene if necessary. You know what the saddest part is? I continued after a pause. I would have helped you if you had just asked. If you had been honest about your financial problems, I would have found a way to support you. But instead, you chose deceit and betrayal. We can fix this, Brooke said desperately. Give us a chance, Lawrence. We'll never again. No, I shook my head. Some things can't be fixed. Trust, once broken, can never be fully restored, especially when the betrayal was so deep and thoughtful. What do you want us to do? Ethan asked, his voice sounding startled. Nothing, I answered. I just want you to understand the consequences of your actions. I've changed my will. Most of my fortune will go to charity and to support Pine Grove. You, Ethan, will receive a symbolic $1, so that you cannot challenge the will on the grounds that I forgot about you. But the house, Ethan began. The house will be sold. I didn't let him finish. The money from the sale will go to create a library named after your mother here in Pine Grove. I think she'd like that. Brooke began to cry, sobbing quietly into her silk handkerchief. Ethan sat motionless, his face a mask of shock and despair. As for the legal ramifications, Harvey intervened, we have enough evidence to charge you with attempted fraud, emotional abuse, and possibly even attempted bodily harm, given your plans for Lawrence's medication. Ethan turned even paler. But Harvey continued, looking at me. The decision to file a formal police report rests with Lawrence. All eyes turned to me. I could feel the weight of that decision. Despite everything Ethan had done, he was still my son, my only child, part of me and Olivia. I won't apply, I said finally. Not because I forgive you, but because I don't want to spend the rest of my life litigating. I want to move on. Thanks, Dad, Ethan whispered. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. I got up from the table. Our conversation is over. I'm staying at Pine Grove by choice, not because you put me here. I found friends here, interesting activities, a new meaning of life. And you. You can go on with your lives, but without my financial support. Can we at least visit you? Brooke asked, wiping away her tears. I wondered, did I ever want to see them again? Could I ever trust them again? Not right now, I answered. Maybe sometime in the future. But right now, I want you to leave. Ethan and Brooke rose slowly. They looked devastated, defeated. All their plans had fallen apart. All hopes of easy money had evaporated. Dad, Ethan made one last attempt. I'm really sorry. I don't know what came over me. This is not the man I want to be. Then become a different person, I replied. But do it without me. They left the room accompanied by Harvey's cold stare. Through the glass door, I watched them cross the hall and walk out of the building without looking back. Are you okay? Harvey asked when we were alone. Yeah, I breathed out, feeling oddly relieved. It was liberating to tell them everything I'd been holding in. You made the right decision, Harvey put his hand on my shoulder. By not suing them, you showed them a mercy they didn't deserve. It's not about mercy, I shook my head. There's just no point in wasting energy on revenge. They've already been punished, the loss of my trust and my inheritance. We left the conference room and headed for the common living room. Edith and the other friends were waiting for me there, their faces expressing concern and curiosity. Well, Edith asked impatiently, how did it go? They broke down, I answered, sitting down in the chair beside her. First they denied everything. Then they blamed each other, and in the end they begged for forgiveness. And you forgave them? Sarah asked. No, I shook my head. I said I wouldn't sue them, but I didn't want to see them, at least not yet. That's right, Henry nodded approvingly. Some things don't deserve forgiveness. It's not about forgiveness, I countered. It's that I can't trust them anymore. And without trust, you can't have a real relationship. We spent the rest of the day talking about what had happened. My friends were supportive, sharing their stories of family betrayals and disappointments. I felt that I had found a new family here, not bound by blood, but united by mutual respect and understanding. In the evening, when most of the Pine Grove residents had gone to their rooms, I stayed in the living room with Edith. We sat by the window, watching the first stars light up in the sky. You know, she said, when they brought me here, I thought my life was over. That this was the last stop before the end. But it turned out to be a new beginning. I've found friends, activities that bring me joy, even a new purpose in life, to help old people like me who have been thrown away. I feel the same way, I admitted. When Ethan and Brooke left me here, I was furious. But now I'm almost grateful to them. Without their betrayal, I never would have met you and the others. Never would have discovered this new chapter of my life. See? Edith smiled. Sometimes the worst events lead to the best outcomes. The next morning, Harvey arrived with the official paperwork, an updated will, a power of attorney to manage my finances in his name, and a plan for a charitable foundation. It's done, he said as we signed the last piece of paper. Now your estate is protected, and Ethan won't be able to claim anything. What about the house, I asked. You said it needed to be sold. I've already found a potential buyer, Harvey replied. A young family, the husband is an architect like you. He was thrilled with the design, said it was exactly what they were looking for. This news brought me a strange satisfaction. My house, into which I had put so much love and creativity, would belong to a man who could appreciate its architectural merits. Great, I nodded. When do they want to see it? This Saturday, if you don't mind. I can drive you there if you want to be there, I wondered. Did I want to go back to a house that was now associated not only with happy memories of living with Olivia, but also with Ethan's betrayal? Yes, I decided. I want to be there. I want to say goodbye to the house and meet the new owners in person. Okay, Harvey smiled. I'll pick you up Saturday morning. When Harvey left, I went to the park. It was a beautiful day, sunny, but not too hot, with a light breeze bringing the scent of blossoming apple trees. I sat on a bench by the pond, watching the ducks and thinking about the future. My life had changed dramatically over the past few months. I had lost illusions about my family but gained new friends. I lost the home I had built, but found a new place where I was accepted for who I am. I lost my son, but found a new purpose in helping other seniors in difficult situations. And perhaps most importantly, I found inner freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from other people's expectations, from having to conform to someone else's ideas of what an older person should be. I looked at the water surface of the pond, at the blue sky reflected in it, and felt a strange peace. Yes, Ethan and Brooke had gotten what they deserved. They lost my trust, my financial support, and the possibility of an easy life at my expense. But I'd also gotten something valuable, a second chance. A chance to live the rest of my life on my own terms, surrounded by people who actually respect me. After all, isn't that what justice is all about? Not punishing the guilty, but restoring balance. In finding a new harmony after the chaos of betrayal, I smiled as I watched a duck leading a brood of ducklings across the pond. Life goes on, and so did my life. A new chapter was just beginning, and I was ready to turn the page.